The Trump administration is grappling with both the health and economic impacts of the coronavirus pandemic. Congress and the White House remain at a standstill over the next round of pandemic relief as millions of Americans lose their weekly unemployment benefits. Skyler Henry reports from the White House.
With Hurricane Isaias battering Puerto Rico, President Trump headed to Florida to discuss how to deal with the approaching storm in the midst of the coronavirus pandemic.
We're doing a good job on that. We have vaccines that are really getting close. We have therapeutics that are really getting close.
Earlier in the day, President Trump tweeted his criticism of Democrats for questioning America's coronavirus testing capabilities, even as his testing czar acknowledged real problems with the system.
Would it be possible for our nation to have results for all COVID tests completed and returned within 48 and 72 hours?
It is not a possible benchmark we can achieve today, given the demand and the supply.
At the same hearing Friday, Congressman Jim Jordan pushed Dr. Anthony Fauci to say protests should be shut down after the infectious disease expert said crowds help spread the virus.
I said crowds. I didn't say specifically. I didn't say protests do anything.
So the protests don't increase the spread of the virus?
I didn't say that. You're putting words in my mouth.
Fighting between the White House and Congress has so far prevented a deal on a new coronavirus relief package.
It is a disgrace that they're not negotiating, but they're only looking to play a political game. I happen to think it's a bad political game. I think it hurts them.
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi says it's not a game.
We want to help America's working families, and they want to give tax cuts to the richest people. Why can't they come to agreement? We don't have shared values. That's just the way it is. So it's not bickering. It's standing our ground.
Millions of Americans on unemployment are losing their extra $600 a week in federal benefits as of today.
And Skyler Henry joins me now from the White House. Skyler, as we saw in your piece, the White House and lawmakers are at an impasse over the next coronavirus relief bill. What are the major sticking points in the latest negotiations, and what, if anything, have both sides agreed on?
Well, hey, Elaine, good evening to you. Well, to use a poker analogy here in terms of the negotiation process, both sides have a strong poker face in terms of what they're willing to negotiate on. And then you also have to think about this as well. They're also actually saying that they're holding their cards close to their vest in terms of what they're willing to budge on. But what we do know as far as a sticking point is that both sides want to see help for these unemployed Americans, these tens of millions of unemployed Americans who are seeing the impact of losing those benefits as of today. Now, we have heard of one side propose an extension and in terms of this unemployment insurance and then come back to the rest of the coronavirus relief package later. But Democrats simply say that they do not want that to happen right now. They're more so in an all or nothing approach right now because they've had months to work on this, that being the Republicans to do so. And so now what you have here is this stalemate, this impasse, where lawmakers are saying that they are just not agreeing on the terms of this new deal. Now, we did hear from White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows earlier today. He said that he brought 4 different offers to Democratic leaders that were all rejected. And so now we seem to be a little bit at this stalemate here. But we do know that Mark Meadows, we know that Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, as well as Speaker Nancy Pelosi and Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer will all be meeting tomorrow to discuss these new terms in this new package. But what comes from that remains to be seen.
Meantime, lawmakers are considering the need for a national plan to contain the coronavirus pandemic. Skyler, what might a plan like that actually entail?
Well, according to the government's top health experts up until this point, it circles around testing. Now, obviously, there are a myriad of areas that are ripple effects, so to speak, from testing. But we heard from Admiral Brett Giroir earlier today, who, along with several other health leaders, including Dr. Anthony Fauci, told lawmakers that this all circles around testing, but it all won't matter in terms of testing won't be a cure-all, so to speak, without personal responsibility. And that includes social distancing, wearing masks, and, of course, proper hygiene, of course. But he did say that the focus here is on testing. First off, protecting the most vulnerable among us, obviously the elderly and minority groups who are disproportionately affected by the coronavirus, but then also helping out states and local governments who need testing. Obviously, one state who's dealing with a spike of coronavirus, obviously their state or their status is differs from another, and so what you have there is different states having different needs, and so obviously testing dependency is important in different areas, and then obviously figuring out how to properly trace and source the areas where there are spikes of the coronavirus to contain it, so to speak. Those are the priorities for the administration. Those are the priorities for the government right now. But again, this all kind of circles around testing and the proper funding for it, Elaine.
Yeah, a myriad of challenges. Well, switching gears, Hong Kong postponed its parliamentary elections for a year Friday. Chief Executive Carrie Lam cited coronavirus concerns. How has the White House responded to that?
Well, President Trump was asked about that earlier today. He said that they will have a much more formal report tomorrow, but we did hear from White House Press Secretary Kayleigh McEnany in her press briefing earlier today, and she said, quote, that the White House condemns the decision and that it undermines the democratic process and the freedoms that underpinned the success of Hong Kong. And of course, this goes into the fissure, so to speak, between the United States and China in terms of just their deteriorating relationship over the past few months here. And obviously, this is rhetoric that plays right into the orbit of what the president has been saying over the last few days and weeks, and that is talking about elections and pushing them back because of possible interference and other things like that. And so these are all sorts of things that you have to kind of think about. The president addressing his remarks, or what he tweeted yesterday, saying that he considered the idea or asked the question, so to speak, of pushing or delaying these elections because he thinks that there are going to be a significant number of fraudulent mail-in ballots. And so I think that is kind of what we're starting to see here. Obviously, that has been relatively debunked by a lot of experts and polling officials who've said that, no, this is actually one of the more efficient ways to do this in terms of mail-in voting, and particularly the actual votes themselves. When you think about the barcodes that are on these mail-in votes, when you think about the actual paper that's being used, it has to be scanned in with these machines, and that it will reject that if there is, or if the machines read something wrong here. The president also alluded to this speculation of the fact that there might be some sort of foreign interference in terms of tampering with election results from different countries, and that is something that's relatively debunked as well, as we've heard from polling officials to say that, no, this is actually something that is a little bit more efficient than, say, what we're looking forward to in terms of this coming November.
All right, Skyler Henry at the White House for us. Skyler, thank you very much.
All right, Elaine, thanks.